Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Student's Opinion. We are back for the third episode today, and we are discussing the Colombian education system with Patrick. Patrick, could you please introduce yourself to our audience?
I'm Patrick. I'm 17 years old. I have studied in Colombia my whole life, in the same school, Colombo Británico in Cali. And I just moved here to the Netherlands a month ago. And yeah, it's been my first ever school swap.
I met Patrick as well, starting in UWC Maastricht, and I must say, I think we have only film class together at the moment. That's the only common class we have, and I think he's a he's a great friend and a brilliant student. I might add from that perspective of my brief interaction of 1 month with him.
So, Patrick, could you tell us more about how education in Colombia was? So, do you have a primary, middle, and high school, or is the system different there?
Well, we have this thing where okay, it's basically like it's before kindergarten, so you just bring your kid to school, but it basically works as a child care system, but it's in the same school. So we had that, which I believe it's not common here. And other than that, it's really the same. We have kindergarten, pre-kindergarten, kindergarten, middle school, and high school, and that's it. You go to college.
I see. So, does your education system also have 12 years?
Yeah, 12 years. Usually in Colombia, it's only 11 years. But in my school, it was 12 years because they were connected with, we were trying to do both the Colombian school system and the IB. So that kind of mixed it up. But yeah, it's usually 11 years.
Okay, so could you discuss the Colombian education system itself? So, what are the subjects that are focused on? Are there extracurriculars that are given a lot of priority? So, how is it different from schooling in the Netherlands, say, right now for you?
Well, I would say it's different because, first of all, the funding, our schools are literally not as pretty as they are here. I believe your government really invests in the school itself, the infrastructure. I really enjoy that. Our schools do not have the same quality. Also, we are more centered in academics, for instance, mathematics and Spanish, but most schools there don't really take English. And if you do, you take it once every week. So most people there are not bilingual or anything, just Spanish and mathematics. And that's basically what the only thing the school focuses on. And yeah, that's pretty much it. We don't really have extracurriculars. Well, we didn't really have them. It was really limited, maybe some math Olympics and other university-led events, but they were from outside organizations, not from the school. And that was pretty much it. Honestly, there was not a lot of extracurriculars, and the academic program was extremely tough on mathematics, but that was it.
Could you expand on the difficulty of your mathematics curriculum? So, what topics were covered and in which grades?
For me, I didn't really start it the hard part of mathematics. They say mathematics start to be really hard when you are in 10th and 11th grade, which is the two last years. I didn't really have them because I moved here, of course. But basically, they are trying for you not to have such a hard time in university, but everyone should take the same curriculum, and everything is just to prepare you for the government-led exam. It's called the ICFES. So that's basically the placement for universities. Whenever you want to apply to a university in Colombia, you need to take the ICFES. And then, you can apply. But it's only mathematics. So that's it's really, really tough on mathematics because it's the only thing we actually see. There is no much art. There's a really weak art program. There was not film, which I'm taking now here with MG. And yeah, it was pretty tough, to be honest. I didn't really enjoy it.
Oh, okay. So you say that Colombia focuses a lot on math, but how about other subjects like science and social science? Because those subjects are also needed, right, in university if you're, say, majoring in a journalism or in engineering, just math alone won't get you through. So, did you have an education there, or was it just really weak? And if it was weak, how would students compensate for it in university?
Well, most universities have, our universities are 5 years, so that's like a really long university program, in my opinion. And the first 2 years are basically only to level people in social sciences, for instance, if you're going to study something related to social sciences, and Spanish, for instance, like we don't really see that much literature. There is an Spanish program which is also like, I will say good-ish, but it's not as hard as mathematics. Like it's really like you only go to school for mathematics, apparently. And our arts program was inexistent. Our humanities was also inexistent. Sciences were also really solid. Um, but that was pretty much it. Physics, for instance, was like the main one. Biology, not that much, and chemistry you will see sometimes, but only in like higher income schools because most schools don't really have laboratory labs, so you don't have like anywhere to do the experiments and like treat with new like substances or anything. So yeah.
Well, I had a question. So you said that there would be a math examination because Colombia focuses a lot on math. If, say, you scored a very high grade or percentage in your examination, in the math examination for university, did you get a so-called scholarship or a grant to study further?
Yeah, well, there is this government-led program which is meant to give financial aid to students, but it's not really financial aid. It's simply like giving you this big loan for you to apply to university and pay your tuition. There are some public universities, but it's really hard to get into those because there are just like a few of them, and they are usually like really like everyone wants to get into those, so it's really tough, like the competition itself. So most people go to a private university with a loan that the government lends them, but then again, well, it's a student loan, so you need to pay it back, of course, and it doesn't really matter what your ICFES score was. Like your ICFES score only matters when you are going to apply to university, and then they might reject you or take you in. Most universities, like public universities, literally only care about your ICFES score, so that's why it's really important. But most private universities, they don't really care about your ICFES score that much, so it's only about the tuition fee, and it's a pretty high tuition fee. So most people in Colombia do not have a university degree, simply because it's really tough to like get one, considering the economic requirements. So yeah.
If the government gives you a so-called loan or grant to go on and study further, if you want to say apply to a private university which is not in Colombia per se, let's say if you want to apply to United States for that matter, how do students plan out? Because the other universities in the United they might not study mathematics per se in the United States. They might want to study something else. So do you get a scholarship from that perspective from the government that you're going outside, you're studying, and then you might come back and to contribute to your country and per se?
Not really. Like they might grant you the loan, but it's really difficult to get. It's honestly most people who study abroad come from maybe more well-off families who can actually afford it, but most people could never like really afford university outside of Colombia. So yeah, this like coming to UWC and everything has been like really impacting for me, the scholarship and everything, because otherwise I will have never thought about actually like leaving my country to study. So yeah. And no, they grant you that loan, but then again, you need to pay it back, and it's like a whole deal. I believe it's really similar to the United States with the student loans. And yeah, they don't grant scholarships. They did grant them a while ago, but not anymore because we changed our governments, and yeah.
Okay, I have a couple of quick questions. So these loans that the government gives you, so what's the interest rate on them?
Okay, honestly, I wouldn't really know. Um, I do know that you also need to apply, and they also look at your ICFES scores. So like those loans are not really available for everyone. you need to apply in advance. I know they will try to help you out, for instance. So sometimes the government just throws this new policy, and it's like, okay, um, we have like pardoned 50% of your debt with like the student loan. Like they really try to cut it, like help you out, not make you pay that much. But at the end of the day, it is expensive and it is really difficult to get. And then again, not many people can actually afford a loan because you need to go through and they need to look at your papers and you need to sign a lot of paperwork regarding how are you going to pay it back and everything. So it's a whole deal. Most people do not study abroad.
Okay, that's interesting. And also, one more question I had was, since you said Colombia focuses a lot on its math education, how do these students that are applying to universities abroad meet the other subject requirements? Like you say you're coming to the United States to study, you need to have a solid foundation in English and your sciences and social sciences, as well as a language other than English, along with mathematics. So, how do students meet those requirements? Do they like take external courses, or do they have specialized courses in school to do that, or do they just do self-studying?
Well, many people do self-studying. For instance, like with my English, of course, my school helped me a lot. Like we actually did have an English program, and like it was quite a bilingual school. But I do needed to like study like in my own time to try to like catch up with English and everything. And that happens a lot in Colombia. We have this like we have La Alianza Francesa and we have Colombo Americano, which are these two like schools for you to learn languages. But again, they are expensive. You need to pay like additionally because they are of course private. So it's really difficult to learn a language in Colombia, I would say, for most people, because either you do it by your own or you go to one of these schools, which, well, it's expensive again. So yeah, no, most people like, for real, most people who go to public school in Colombia will not go to university abroad, simply because there are a lot of requirements and the subject package does not cover English, for instance, and humanities are really weak, same as arts. So it's really tough.
All right. So then another follow-up question I had was, how did you find it moving from Colombia, which is a very math-centered country, to the Netherlands recently, which has a more extensive and general education?
I have loved it. I came here, they offered me the IBCP, and I was like, okay, I'm not taking math ever again. I really don't like math. So it was really tough how they try to like put you all in the same box, I would say, to make you study the same things, because at the end of the day, we all have like different interests. Again, my school was an AB school, so we maybe had more freedom than most schools in Colombia. But it was still like really math centered, simply because the culture is like that. So most courses were math, and most quizzes were math. Like math is really the only like important grade, I would say, in Colombia. And it was like really liberating to see like my schedule not having any math. It was also really weird. I'm still asking my tutor if it's okay that my schedule does not have any math class in it. And yeah, apparently it is okay. And I'm really enjoying to like actually pursue something I care about, and like explore my passions farther, and not like just go for math, which I'm sure now that it's not really my thing.
So, Patrick, you said Colombia focuses on math as a subject overall across its years. So, what are the job opportunities that are available to students if they continue studying maths? I mean, are there a lot of job opportunities on that perspective?
Well, yeah, we have a lot of engineers, and also medicine. So our science program is sometimes quite strong, but it's more physics. So usually, people who study medicine come from private schools who actually had like a better science program, biology wise and chemistry wise. But we have a lot of engineers. We have a lot, well, of lawyers. So yeah, I guess that's not really math centered, but there are a lot of lawyers. We have a lot of teachers, math teachers, for instance. We have a lot of economists and people who work as accountants. There are a lot of them, a lot of them. That's pretty much it. Like if you are going to study humanities or maybe philosophy or things that are not that centered on numbers or logic or like critical thinking, then it's really tough because there are not that many opportunities, and usually you don't get paid that much. Most people try to study either medicine or become lawyers or engineers because that those are like the main professions which you can actually like get paid wellly to do.
Okay, so just a question regarding that. Which is the most sought after profession? So it's like computer science or something, or is it different?
Well, it will depend. For most private school kids, like all kids who go to like I wouldn't say private school, but rather most kids who like whose families whether is better off and they actually had the access to biology, chemistry. They want to be doctors. It's really common. A lot of doctors and a lot of engineers. So it's either doctor or engineer, sometimes lawyer, and that's it. Those are like the three main professions. Everyone wants to be them. There are all universities offer them, and yeah, it's really competitive in those fields. But it's also the only professions who I think you can actually make like good money working there. So that's why people like them so much, I guess.
Patrick, we heard a lot about Colombia. We want to hear a bit about your passions. Like, what are your passions? We understood math essentially isn't your passion per se, or a subject you like that much. But what are your passions?
Okay, lately I'm really interested in sustainable business. I love to do presentations. I believe I'm more of like a humanities person. And I really love to like focus on that finally. So yeah, I believe those are my passions. If I were to start to choose my career right now, I will probably say business, sustainable business, and I really like that area and to focus on humanities finally again.
So, what sort of sustainable businesses are you looking at?
Well, lately I've been really focused on Ecosia, which is this webpage that plants trees. I really like them. They are carbon negative. Really few companies are carbon negative. They're also really big. They have won a lot of awards for their projects, planting trees. They've planted more than 1 million trees. Uh, so yeah, I really like that company. We're also trying to, because I'm doing the IBCP in sustainable business, so we're also analyzing some other companies like IKEA, for instance. But yeah, I really like that area of study, like sustainable business. Great.
That's really interesting.
Right. So, Patrick, you were talking about how the government helps you out on, like, the government might give you a say per se loan to study for your college. Now, it's how expensive is that on that perspective of taking from your side, taking the country's point of view, and is the college experience really worth it in Colombia?
Well, I would say it's worth it simply because if you don't attend college, you probably are like way harder to employ in like a field that will actually earn you money. And I mean that in my country specifically because well our unemployment rate is really high at the moment. So it is really difficult to find a job in general, and it is even more difficult if you don't have um, any university experience. It is really expensive to attend university in Colombia. I will say for everyone. For everyone, it's really expensive. There are these main universities, Javeriana and ICESI, which are present like they are like more influential. I would say in my city at least. But then again, they are really competitive. You need a really high ICFES score, and they're also private, so you need to pay a lot, and you also need a good ICFES score. So it's really tough. It is expensive for everyone. It is really expensive in all universities in Colombia, I would say. And I would say it's required to go to university. if you want to earn a good living in Colombia again. And well, probably as a solution, I will maybe argue for us to focus more on public universities than on private universities. So maybe we don't need more loans, because loans are really difficult to obtain and really difficult to pay back, especially with all of the unemployment rate, which is really high. But rather, we need more public universities. We need better public infrastructure. We need better public education. So probably focus on that. That I believe that's what our government is trying to do right now. Like, we just change governments. So I really support that. And I guess we'll just wait and see what happens.
Well, thanks a lot for bringing up the problem of that perspective, and also for the solution. I think that's a very interesting solution, and I hope it works out for Colombia on that basis as well. Now, I noticed another point on your conversation, that it's very the phrase "it's very expensive" keeps popping up in all the points you keep saying about education in Colombia. So would you say that the access to education is not available to everyone per se, to all all people of different economic standards, or am I wrong on thinking it from that perspective?
No, it's definitely not accessible by everyone. You need to live in a big city to have access to education, for instance. And there are a lot of we are agricultural country. Like, we have a lot of agriculture. We have a strong primary economy. So we do have a lot of crops. We do have a lot of farmers. We do have a lot of not even suburban, countryside farmers. And for them, it's really difficult to have access to education, because there are no programs that actually allow them to get that access to education. So they need to travel a lot to get to a good school. Their kids need to travel a lot to go to a school. And hence, you need to live in a big city in order to get that access. And not even in the big city, you get like good education, because again, public schools are not that great. Most of them are really not great. In bigger cities, it's maybe a little bit better, but still, most people in Colombia, even if you don't have the money for it, will try to get their kids into a private school, because public schools really don't work, and private schools get more freedom and can actually like expand the curriculum. So yeah.
But wouldn't you say it's not fair per se on that perspective? If we think about it, like only a particular economic standard gets that level of education, but the other one doesn't, on that perspective. And also thinking on the point that, as you said, Colombia is a agricultural country, so wouldn't better access to education also help the farmers who for knowing better techniques of growing their crops, so that it can altogether help the country boost and develop as its economy as a whole?
Okay, if we had a better curriculum, if we had a curriculum that allowed people to expand more on their passions, then probably better education will really help. But we don't. We have a curriculum that's really limited. And okay, honestly, if you want to study, I don't know, philosophy at university, or if you want to study agriculture, or if you honestly don't really need math for those. But the curriculum they teach in school is always math centered. So if we had a better curriculum, we will probably offer better education, and then we could implement schools in more places and ensure that all of the country has access to education. But for now, we really should center on the curriculum and expanding it and making sure that you can pursue more passions rather than just follow dictated math, the dictated math curriculum, which really like limits the passion seeking. A farmer doesn't, someone who is interested in becoming a farmer doesn't really care about math as much as they care about biology, for instance.
Yeah, okay, so those are interesting points. Now, you do recommend that Colombia changes its focus from just on maths to more general education. So, is that happening now? Like you said, there's a new government in place and they're trying to improve on public education. So, is that happening in terms of changing the syllabus as well, or is there still time to go for that?
Well, they are trying to, I wouldn't say change it, but maybe add to it. There might be like in the governmental proposal that the new president presented, he was trying to ensure kids have more access to arts, for instance, which is an inexistent program currently. It's not a curriculum, like it's not even in the curriculum. It's really minor. And I will say that might help. They are trying, okay. But again, I don't know if that will go through the government, like if that will actually make it pass everything. A lot of presidents have proposed different things, but they don't really get through. So yeah, I am not sure what's going to happen, but of course I am happy that they are actually speaking about that, because I think we really do need to work on our curriculum.
So, what is the reason that these proposals are not actually being implemented? You said that several presidents have brought up proposals about changing the education, but why isn't it that they're going through and actually getting implemented?
In general, with everything, many presidents have had like great ideas for the country. Well, I'm in my opinion, okay. But we have well, the Congress. Anyway, we have a lot of governmental. Like our power is not like centered simply on the president, okay, if that makes sense. So it's really difficult to pass a proposal, and our country is really politically divided. It is it is polarized. So it's difficult to make proposals pass if you are from a different political party. So yeah, it's really difficult for things to pass in Colombia and to get implemented in general.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean that kind of makes sense thinking from the politics point of view as well. So Patrick, okay, we discussed a lot on the basis of money issue and the access to education. So, what can you, since you have studied a significant portion of your life in Colombia itself, could you tell us a bit more about the school culture per se? I mean, back here in UWC, I mean, I think we do have a good culture. I mean, I personally think so that we have a great school culture, but could you give us a good insight on how Colombia school system works?
So here, I believe it's way more Americanized in the way that, I mean, it's an international school, but I really think it's really Western like. So you get here, and in my opinion, I really feel sometimes like I'm in a American movie, American high school movie of some sort. I don't mean to the extent of there being really specific cliques or people being unfriendly, but more about like the topics themselves. Like everything's revolving around parties, and I don't know. I really do feel like I'm in a American high school coming of age movie whenever I go to school here. It's really funny. In Colombia, I do think it's a little bit Americanized, yeah, but it's not that much. There are, I believe, bigger problems to be told in school. Like people, yes, have different lives. It's really academic. It's really academic. So I will say my social life in Colombia was not really that prominent because I was centering on getting past my tests. There are a lot of tests too. There are a lot of parties, of course, because it's Latin America, and well. So yeah, we have parties, a lot of parties, but it's not really that inclusive in Colombia. There's a lot of sexism, for instance. People are more reserved, I would say. Like I feel like here they actually try to get us all involved. They try to make us all socialize to one another. They try to make us meet new people. In Colombia, it was not like that. The school was really strict, and I never felt like the freedom to actually organize a student-led activity, for instance, that will have never happened in Colombia, but it was the first thing I saw here, a student-led assembly, which I thought was really incredible. So yeah, it's just a different culture, I will say. Yeah, it was a culture shock. I really like it here in the inclusive side, but I do miss some of Colombian costumes, I will say.
Like, what do you miss of Colombia as of the sense? Like, I mean, if you would like to talk about that as well.
Yeah, of course. Well, our culture in general, this is probably more towards the social side, but we are not that direct and straightforward. I believe here everyone's really straightforward with what they want, where they want, like, for instance, their relationship to go, what they want to say. Like, if you say something that offended someone, that person will literally tell you, okay, this offended me, please change it, don't say that again, which I find really cool. But that will have never happened in Colombia. And I guess I am accustomed to that mindset of just being really passive aggressive with everything. So we don't really say what we feel, or like we're not really straightforward about things, but rather we try you to guess what we want. I believe that's a common theme in all of Latin America. Some countries more than others. But basically, whenever like you like someone, you wouldn't tell that person you like them, but you will just send small signals that you like them, and it can get really confusing sometimes. But here, I believe it's more straightforward. It's just, I like you. Do you like me back? It's just different, I would say. But I miss understanding my environment, if you know what I mean. Like, I knew how to play by those rules of being passive aggressive because that was my environment. And here, no one seems to get that passive aggressiveness, like not being straight, but rather being less direct, everything being more implicit rather than explicit. So yeah, I missed that because it was easier. But this is also cool. It literally saves you time, I would say.
Okay. So thank you a lot, Patrick, for your opinions. It was really interesting to listen to you talk about Colombian education system and life outside in Colombia in general, and how it has been a big change for you to move to the Netherlands. So before we end the podcast, we're in our final segment, which is Mythbusters. So what are some myths about Colombia that you believe are not true, but most of the world believes is?
Okay. First of all, we do have
A drug culture, I would say, but it's way less serious than the word seems to believe. We no longer talk about Pablo Escobar like at all. Okay, the streets are way more safe now, way more safe. We have really big cities. We don't live in the jungle, as some people like to think of. We also have some really developed areas. We are quite Americanized, yeah. Well, in some parts, I would say. There are a lot of myths about Colombia, security-wise, development-wise, and yeah, let's really bust them, honestly.
That was really interesting. So I think that does. I had a few of those myths in mind too before asking that question. I'm happy to know that they're not true and they're only myths.
Yeah, no, not at all, for real.
Okay, and with that, we thank you, Patrick, for joining us today. We conclude our third episode here on The Student's Opinion. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and listen to us on Spotify and Amazon Music and Google Podcasts. This episode is exclusively available on Spotify for the first 2 days. Please leave your comments on YouTube and don't forget to share the podcast with everyone you know. Also, if you have any suggestions, do email us at contact.thestudentsopinion@gmail.com.